produce mainly textile parts for sweaters or vests. These machines are also named cotton machines. The name is related to William Cotton, the designer of these machines. The machines work with horizontally arranged, collectively moving needle bars using beaded needles. In these machines, a narrowing attachment is standard. The narrowing attachment allows stitch transfer movements to produce a shaped fabric with low waste production. Furthermore, the attachment can produce lace patterns, which results in open structures. At the beginning of the stitch formation, a yarn is laid in before the needles immediately start the sinking of the loops between the needles one after another. The needles move downwards and towards the fixed presser bar, so the loops with lower connection points on the needles can slide over the stem and the needle hooks. At the same time, the sinkers open to give the new yarn knitting machine was invented in 1863 by Isaac Lamb. It consists of a moving carriage which has cams. The cams have metallic curves which slide out the latch needles one after another. The latch needles are arranged in a front and a rear needle bed. The cams consist of lower racing cams, upper racing cams, and stitch cams. They determine the stitch formation, tuck formation, and the stitch quality. The stitch formation in the needle starts with one needle after another, beginning in this case in the front. You can see the yarn carrier in the middle of the picture. By the choice of yarn carrier, needle bed racking, and cam settings, the patterning is controlled. Individual needle.
Nå, ikke mye tråd da. Ferdig. Vet du.
Let's start by taking a look at the big picture, the basic configuration of most knitting machines. Commonly used for single knits are circular knitting machines, which pull their yarn supply from creels located either above the machine or next to the machine. To make it easier for technicians to service the creels, it is more usual to find creels located at the side. In this position, less lint falls into knitting elements. Larger packages can be used, and more feeds can be placed on the machine. Whether the creel is at the side or top, the principles for circular knitting are the same. Fed from above the knitting elements, yarns move from the yarn supply, or creel, through guides to stop motion controls above the machine, then back down through tension controls and yarn feeding devices to the knitting elements. Quality products can be produced only when stop motion and yarn feeding functions are properly set. The intricate action of knitting, where needles form loops, occurs at the middle of the machine, between the take-up and the yarn feeding mechanism. A close-up shows you how, with circular weft knitting, needles knit one after the other in a sequence for each yarn. Notice how loops are formed horizontally by needles knitting around the cylinder, forming a tube. After yarn is knit on the knitting elements, the knitted fabric is passed over a spreader mechanism through take-up rolls and is wound into a roll. This elliptical spreader
in the front you can see the rotating fabric takedown, and in the upper part the yarn creel and delivery. The circular knitting machine uses individual moved latch needles in needle beds of a rotating cylinder. Here they move up and down. These up and down movements are produced by resting cylinder cams with their steel plates inside. These cams enclose the cylinder from outside. The yarn carrier, the sinkers and the cams of cylinder and dial are called feet. The needles pass one after another through the feet and form stitches. The courses of stitches are arranged in the fabric like the threads of a screw. Additional needles, so-called dial needles, can be applied in horizontal direction on a dial for the production of double-face fabrics. These needles moving on an orbit with the rotating dial and are moved by the resting dial cams radially. The rib machines, as shown in the representation, the cylinder and dial needles are arranged on gap. While rising, the dial and cylinder needles are crossing each other within the gaps. The rotating dial needles are recognizable above the rotating cylinder needles. The open yarn carrier gives a good view at the process of stitch formation. In particular, the sequence of movements of the knitting cylinder needles has to be watched. The weft knitting shows the individual needle movement in this movie. The latch needles start their racing at the right side and move up to the highest position where the yarn is fed. The previous loops on the needles are guided and held by sinkers. The needles start retracting and receive the yarn. The yarn slides into the needle hook as the needle retracts. In the next step, the latch closes the needle hook and a new stitch is formed. The new yarn loop gets lower connection points.